So what, Will and Gloria, then you guys are both tackling one of the largest barriers when it comes to making innovation for everyone a reality. And that's funding, of course. So tell us about what you're working on, the impact so far, and how people tuning in can benefit or get involved or write checks. So Gloria, tell us, tell us about it.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, I recently taken the role of director of We Rise Together for an equitable and just recovery. And what we know is that COVID has really exposed the persistent economic and health divides and disparities between the Black and Latinx communities and our white counterparts. And that's true in Chicago and throughout the country. But you know, here locally, when we think about what's happened during this time, we know that the Black and Latinx communities have been most impacted. But even before that, you know, there was a 30-year lifespan difference between Streeterville and Englewood. So this is not just COVID, but since we're here, we've got to make a commitment that we come out of this better. And that's really where I've been focused now. And so what we've decided to do with We Rise Together with our partners coming from the philanthropic world and business is we've launched a fund. And it's more than just a fund. It's really about leveraging the resources of philanthropy, business, the nonprofit community, local government, and community working together. And I think that's really key that we talk about resources, not just funding, because everybody brings different assets and different resources to this initiative. And the critical part is breaking down the silos. So in general, what you've seen philanthropy work on a project and think that they are going to have the solutions. You have business working from a different perspective, thinking that they're going to have the solutions. You have government working from their perspective. And so where we are really trying to reimagine how you invest in communities is bringing those resources together in a true multi-sector approach with community voice at the center, so that we're not retrofitting the community voice after decisions have been made, but actually centering with what are the community-led projects? What's the vision and aspiration of the community? How do we bring all of those resources together? And so I call that stacking resources. Our goal is to raise $250 million, and that will be the money that we can use in our kind of what I call our cornerstone projects, but where we make our big investments. But $250 million may sound like a lot of money, but when you are looking at the needs across the city and the investment that's required to create thriving communities, it's a small amount of money. And that's why the stacking of resources becomes so important, because when we make an investment, we can attract private capital. When we attract private capital, we can also align that with what the city is doing and where now some of the federal resources are going to be placed. We've got to make sure that we're not duplicative, but we're aligning those resources in ways that we can actually have catalytic impact. And so that's what We Rise is doing, is really taking advantage of leveraging these resources, bringing together philanthropy, business, nonprofit, community, and local government to actually reimagine neighborhoods and invest in those neighborhoods in a catalytic way, but in a way that involves community. So people can certainly write checks to We Rise. That's certainly one way that they can help.
Awesome. And I think you're spot on with with versus for, and that it's all centered at the community. If we can get that right, that we're doing this with the community versus for them, I think that's the ticket. So yeah, thanks. And what about you, Will? Talk to us about what you're working on and the impact so far.
Yeah, so I just, again, can't say enough about what Gloria is doing and the initiative that she's leading, right? And this sort of notion of starting at the core of the community, right? And so for me, the way you work in a community is you listen, understand, and support, Like that's it. It's not leading, it's not doing that, that they actually have the solutions. They've been working on the problems a long time. And this sort of coordinating, as she said, and stacking, I think is incredibly important. And Forest Bay, you know, we want to be a part of that stack, right? And sort of really be able to come in and partner with others to sort of do that. And so we're a family office, and we look to invest in Black and women-led firms, primarily in and around the Chicagoland area, but across the country as well. And so we're trying to sort of figure out how do we provide the equity capital necessary to allow our businesses to achieve their full potential, right? How do we sort of think about if you had a wealthy friend and family person who could come in and provide reasonable capital and support? You know, these are the kinds of things that we're really trying to do. But we recognize that the capital, although a big component, is not the only piece, right? In that you need financial capital, you need social capital, you need intellectual capital. And so we look to figure out how in our investments we can provide or connect the businesses that we're trying to support to those other possible stacks of capital. And I think, you know, Gloria said it well, we need our private sectors to really sort of move in. And one prime example of that is McKinsey Scott gave away $4 billion in 4 months, right, in donations. And I can't tell you, looking now, if it's moved anything, right? I mean, that's how big the problem is, significant amounts of capital coming in. And 6 months later, you're kind of like, oh, that was, what happened with that? What's going on? And so we need all of our efforts sort of moving forward. We need not just the philanthropic arms of our corporations moving to support and help. We need the corporations themselves, through their employment, through their supply chains, through their hiring practices. Like all of those are engines of generations to really sort of help propel what we're trying to do, which is to, again, to have belief that there are individuals within our communities and in our neighborhoods that don't have to leave in order to be successful. And that we believe enough in the ingenuity and creativity of our Black and brown and women-led firms here in Chicago that we're willing to step up and provide some capital support and other helps and initiatives and bring people together to see them sort of move forward. And that we believe that that's a good foundation from which to build a strong and vibrant community.